Hello, all, and welcome to the Home Modification Occupational Therapy Alliance meeting, HMOTA. And tonight we have one of our own members, Connie Wyatt, who's going to be presenting home modifications for someone with ALS. But without further ado, Connie Wyatt from our group she and her husband lived with a man who had ALS for several years, from what I understand, and she put together this video.
Hi, everyone.
So here's Connie.
I'm Connie Wyatt. I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about ALS, and I'm recording myself right now, so I won't be able to respond to questions or anything, but I'm going to talk a little bit about my husband and I's experience with ALS and the home modifications and all the adaptive equipment that we were able to help Tim use in the last year. So Tim was known as the Wizard, and he got ALS about 4.5 years ago. He was a professor at UPS, University of Puget Sound, chemistry professor, and so he did magic shows for the students and has been the Wizard for most of his professional life. So I feel like in order to tell you about all of the home modifications that he has, I have to tell you a little bit about him. So let's see here. This is Tim, and I know he would have really enjoyed providing some education to this group as far as his engineering skills are concerned for home modifications and the adaptive equipment that he came up with, along with his ability to advocate for himself. He was really good at that, got everything pretty much that he could have used or needed, probably more than he needed, actually. So unfortunately, he passed away 2 weeks ago, and he was literally thinking up new home modifications and adaptations to his environment until the day he passed. Constantly, just his mind was constantly thinking of new ways to make his life more independent. And in a lot of ways, I think it was a really positive way for him to keep his very busy mind busy as the rest of him wasted away all of his muscles and ability to move. So I think that was kind of a way for him to cope with what was going on. Let's see here. So he had a limb onset ALS, which first affected his arms and his neck, and then his legs and respiratory status, and towards the very end, his swallowing. Although he was still able to eat normal food until the very end of his life. But for the most part, from what I've heard or from what I know, a lot of times it's legs that go first. So he was kind of unique in that he was still, although he wasn't able to get up on his own at the end of his life, he was still able to stabilize himself on his feet and take a few steps. So, but his arms went first, so he wasn't able to use his arms. So yeah, that's a little bit about the Wizard. Let's see. I guess I'll talk a little bit about ALS. It's a neurodegenerative disease in which motor neurons slowly deteriorate, leading to muscle weakness and eventually paralysis. It doesn't affect the senses. It doesn't affect oculomotor function, bladder function, and it doesn't affect cognition, which can be a curse and a blessing at the same time. Like I was saying, for Tim, his mind was just moving 100 miles an hour all the time because he couldn't couldn't move his body. So he was thinking about a lot of things that he could do to change his environment around him. Most people live from 2 to 5 years, some people more. There's a few different types of ALS, but the most common is limb onset ALS, which is what he had. Although I think it's more common for people to lose the function of their lower extremities before their upper extremities, and he was the opposite. And then I think about 25% of people with ALS have bulbar onset ALS, which affects more swallowing and speech and respiratory status a lot sooner than the rest of the body. He was a veteran. He served in the military for 2 years, and from one website, I'm not sure how accurate this is, but from one website I saw that it was about 1.5 to 2 times more likely for veterans to get ALS than the rest of the population, and they don't know why that is. But he served in the Vietnam War when he was younger, but he didn't actually go to Vietnam. He went to Germany. So him serving in the military probably, it was a huge blessing for him, because most of the funding that he's received has been from the VA. So let's see. Here's some of the funding sources that he utilized. Like I said, the VA was probably his main source of funding. He received a lot of things from the VA. A lot of them, his son is now giving back to the VA. I think that was part of the agreement, is when he passed away, some of those things were to be given back. The ALS Association is a great resource for him for equipment as well, although I don't think he used it as much just because he had the VA. His disability income and his retirement funds those were probably the main sources for him for money. Some of the people that he saw on a semi-regular basis: gastroenterologist, pulmonologist, OT, PT, SLP. He had a massage therapist, just that he paid out of pocket every 2 weeks to come in and massage him. He had a manicurist and pedicurist. He had caregivers, which were us, who he paid out of pocket, and he also had caregivers 28 hours a week, 4 hours a day in the morning, that the VA paid through another private company. He had an attorney for all of his end-of-life care, and getting his will and all that stuff organized. He had vendors coming in and out of his home all the time that were provided him through the VA for all the different types of equipment that he was getting from the OT and PT at the VA. And he had a house cleaner, he had landscapers, he had a lot of people helping him out. So, and I'm sure I don't have the full list of all the doctors that he was seeing, but those are just the two that I can think of: the pulmonologist and the gastroenterologist. So I'm going to go ahead and start talking about home modifications, because that's what we all want to hear about, I think. And that's what I'm most passionate about, and what he just loved talking about this stuff and bragging about his bathroom remodel and his elevator. Every new person that came into his house, he made them all go into his bathroom, check out his bathroom, and ride on his elevator. So he was pretty proud of those things in his home, and as you'll see in the pictures that I'm going to show you, they are very nice, and lots of good adaptations within the bathroom remodel. So he had a ramp for his power wheelchair to get outside. That was in his garage. He also had some little ramps to get out to the deck when he wanted to go outside. They worked okay. They weren't as sturdy as I would have liked, but they got him out the door, so they did the job. He had 2 bidets. He had 2 bathrooms upstairs, which is where he spent most of his time, and that kept him the most independent of anything else. I think he was able to go to the bathroom on his own up until about a week before he passed away. He needed help to get up and to get onto the bathroom, but he was able to be on the toilet by himself and use the toilet and all that kind of stuff by himself. So I think that was something that was really important to him to be able to do. So the bidet was a huge thing. Brondell was not the brand of the picture on the left. The left, I'm not sure what the brand of that toilet is, that bidet, but the whole toilet is part of the bidet system. And I think it was like $3,000 for that toilet. Very, very expensive. And it's got all the bells and whistles on it. It's a Kohler. If you see the picture of all the options up the top picture, it's got everything that you could imagine, all the different things. And he would put that in front of his foot and just press the touchscreen with his foot. And then the Brondell was just the seat that he put on top of the toilet in his other bathroom, and that's what he used most of the time. It was less expensive, I think, between $300 and $500. And it did similar things. It didn't flush the toilet when you stood up, so that's something that he could do for a while, but then other people were flushing the toilet for him. This other more expensive one, it even flushed the toilet when you stood up, and the seat cover actually went up it was motion activated, so it goes up when you walk by it.
I'm just going to stop this real quick. One thing that I've been doing, a lot of times people don't go for the whole bidet idea, but when we've been remodeling bathrooms, I'm always trying to get people to do the bidet. Some do, and they love it. Everybody who has done it has just loved it. But for the other people, a lot of times I'll at least ask them to put in an outlet like this one right next to the toilet. So if in the future they decide they want to do the bidet, the outlet's already there. And so, and then as far as like the bidet seats, they just attach to the cold water intake for the toilet. And then some of them have little tanks that heat up water, and other ones have instant hot water, like the kind that you get in the walls. So that's something that I just want to point out to you guys is, when you're working with somebody, they may say no to the bidet now, but if you can at least get them to put an outlet in, especially if you're redoing the whole bathroom, it's not a big deal. Just stick another outlet in. It's like $30 to $50. So does anybody else have anything they want to say before we go on? All right, here it goes.
So, but the Brondell, he also just used his feet to control the bidet controller. He just put it down by his feet and used it because his feet worked pretty well till the day he passed away. So the bidets were really important for his life, I think, and his independence. This is the bathroom. So there's a bunch of stuff in here hidden away modifications that a lot of times we don't think about. So there's an open shower. There's no doors on it, which he really liked. Surprisingly, water doesn't really get out of the shower, which is good. And there's the wheelchair accessible sink. Excuse me. There's built-in roll-out drawers, which you can't see in this picture, but I'll show you. There's grab bars around the toilet, in the shower. There's a sliding door, which you can kind of see, and it's got little, I'm not really sure what they're called, but little metal rods, which I'll show you a better picture of in a minute, that he used. The bidet, touch-activated sink, which when we moved in to live with him, he was actually using with his head because there was no other way for him to touch it except for with his head, but that worked for him. So he did it that way to, fill up his cup and put his dentures into the sink. Let's see, handheld shower head, built-in shower seat. He had heated flooring and motion-activated light. That light that you see that's on in front of the mirror, that one turned on automatically when you walk in front of the door. Okay, so here's some better pictures of that. There's a handheld shower head, and then the grab bars, which he never used, obviously, while my husband and I were living with him. He didn't have use of his arms, so they were of no use to him other than hanging stuff on. So the grab bars weren't so useful. The next picture is the roll-out drawers.
I just want to point out, too, it looks like he's got multiple shower heads, which is always really nice.
Which, just more convenient, probably towards, right after he was diagnosed. That might have been convenient. But he pretty quickly lost function of his arms, so it might be a good adaptation for someone with ALS or someone who's aging in general, just to have those type of roll-out drawers. Those are nice. And then the picture on the right is the little rod I was talking about on the door that's on both sides, so he could close the door. He could close the door with his leg. Open and close the door with his leg. Let's see. There's the touch-activated sink. It was always just turned on the hot water side, and he just touched it, turned right on. There's the sliding door. Let's see what else we got here. Those weren't so useful.
Sorry about that.
The next picture is the roll-out drawers, which, just more. There's the touch-activated sink.
I just want to point a couple of things out here, and if anybody else has anything, please speak up. One thing that I find to be really important for people with wheelchairs when you're modifying a sink like this one, I think she means it's a touch-activated faucet, not a touch-activated sink. But it's really important to put the sink as close to the front edge of the countertop as possible, because that way people don't have to lean over so far to spit into the sink. I have seen handicap accessible sinks that were centered. I think that typically they put them about 6 inches back, and I've had people who haven't been able to use their sink because they can't lean that far forward. So that's one thing we always do, is put the sink as close to the front edge as possible.
Karen, just to note that I'm in the middle of a bathroom project right now, and if you're using a granite countertop, we learned that probably the closest that they can get without compromising the integrity or strength of the granite is 3.5 to 4 inches, or 3 3/4 to 4. The furthest closest you would want if you were using granite.
Nice. Good to know. I'm actually going to write that down.
Yeah.
Well, the other factor too is if you're going custom, you can make the counter a little bit deeper. Because one of the other limitations for people using the sink, when they pull up to it, their foot plates or their knees hit the wall before they can get close enough to the sink. So if you're going to go custom, you can go ahead and make it a little bit wider, or a little bit deeper, I should say.
That's a great idea. Something to always measure the wheelchair for.
I'm going to have a question about the door. Is there something else after this that focuses on that door?
I don't know. I haven't seen the whole thing, but I do know that Connie will be here in about probably 10 minutes. But I really like that idea how they did that door.
Yeah, I just want, is it a pocket door? Is it a barn door kind of thing? Or it's hard to tell from that picture.
Based on the front picture, I would say it's a pocket door.
Yeah, I'm just not a big fan of pocket doors, but that's neither here nor there right now. So
why don't you like pocket doors?
Well, several things. Whenever that door slides into the pocket, that eliminates that wall for grab bars or putting sinks or any kind of plumbing. They're also notorious for getting stuck.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to do a door like a pocket door, make sure you spend the money and get a good system. If you get a Luan door, one of those hollow core doors that are real light and cheap, they tend to warp with steam. The bigger issue is with pocket doors is that little bitty hardware set that they have on these things. You can see it. It's just a little bitty pinch knob, and then if a person has issues with their hands, it's possible for them to hold that thing. Anyway, and I've had several clients who insist on doors, and about 75% of them say they don't like them anymore. But it was a home modification. They had moved light switches and all that, and most of the time they just leave it open now.
Yeah, I could see that. I wonder with that spike coming out he used for his foot, I wonder if there was a cut in the drywall for that. Or,
Gotta wonder, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're losing, looks like 4 or 5 inches of the width of your door.
Yeah.
Of your opening.
Yeah, one thing we did, because we've got a project going in right now, and the people just really wanted a pocket door, but it was the pocket door would have had to go in next to the toilet, and we wanted to put grab bars in there. So we actually did a regular wall and then sort of like a fake wall that had the pocket door in it. Just sort of another wall right next to it just to house the pocket door.
Yeah,
we could have the both.
That's a tremendous amount of work for a door.
Yeah. But that way everybody got what they wanted.
Everybody happy. That's what counts.
Exactly. One thing Nancy writes.
We just use some really cool hardware.
You have seen some really cool hardware?
We have like three pocket doors in the three pocket doors in the bathroom that I'm doing right now, and the hardware on them is really neat, and it's way friendlier to use than what you see in this picture. And so I can post to the website the brand and the company that we used, but you push a little button and this nice big kind of almost D-ring looking thing pops out, and then you can put like 2 or 3 fingers in it and slide the door open and closed.
Oh, cool. Can you post some pictures too?
Sure.
Awesome. It says, looks like this has been modified. There's outlets and switches. And then someone else said you can do a fur wall outside for plumbing and support bars, which is what we're doing in our project right now. And then Judy writes, barn door may solve some of these issues. And we're all looking forward to seeing the pocket door hardware. Oh, but Jenny says barn doors are hard to lock. And the other thing is they don't seal completely, so there's a little bit less privacy.
Yeah, acoustical issues could become a problem. So.
Exactly, and people are very conscious of acoustical issues in bathrooms, I find, you know? Sheila asks, what do you mean by fur walls? I assume that's like, I don't remember who said that up there.
Yeah, that's just building the wall out, make it a little thicker.
Yeah, which is what we did too.
Yeah.
So, all right, here goes. We'll get going again, or we won't finish this, I'm afraid.
It was always just turned on the hot water side, and he just touched it, turned right on. There's the sliding door. Let's see what else we got here. Some of the adaptive equipment he has. Not so much home modifications, but good suggestions for people. A full body dryer, which is pretty neat. He just pressed on the button down at the bottom with his foot, and it turned on that full body dryer. For a while, he was able to still stand up and spin around and dry himself that way. Probably about 6 months before he passed away, he was sitting for most of the shower time, so he wasn't really using that machine as much, but he could still use it sitting down. It had 2 different levels, so a lighter heat and then a more strong body dryer. It's a pretty cool machine. And then there's the motion activated soap dispenser, which again during my time with Tim, he never used. That was mostly just caregivers using it. But I assume that he used it at some point during his time spent with ALS. And then also the toothpaste dispenser. He just put his toothpaste in the little circle down below, and he had to have some pressure and push on it a little bit, and then the toothpaste came out. So he eventually got a shower buddy from the VA, which is an awesome chair for showering. It tilts back, the whole thing tilts back, which is how he sat, so that he could keep his head upright. Eventually his neck muscles didn't work enough to keep his head upright, so he was tilted back a little bit, and that worked really well for him when he was taking showers. The nose pickers, they sound funny, but they're actually really useful for him for quite some time. The one in the middle, he put toilet paper on one of the fingers, and he would be able to walk up to it. It's just the right height for his nose. If his nose was dripping or anything like that, he was able to walk up to it and just clean his nose off on his own.
That's the coolest thing ever.
And some of those things we just don't think about, but it was a simple pleasure for him to be able to clean his own nose a little bit. So also scratch his nose, which we don't think about sometimes either, but just being able to scratch and itch. And then the other one that's upside down, the finger that's upside down, he, instead of using it for a nose picker, he used it eventually to be able to pull down his pants because for a long time he was still standing up to go pee, to go to the bathroom. And so he would pull down he had another adaptation, which I couldn't find to take a picture of, but it was just homemade by him and his son, that he was using for a really long time. And then when he couldn't use that anymore, he started using this. So it's just the nose, it's upside down, and it's just the right height so it would clip on his really light pajama pants. so that he could pull down his pants just enough so that he could go to the bathroom, and then same thing to pull his pants back up. He would just use that to hook it on his pants and get his pants pulled back up. So just, a real simple thing, but made a big difference for him. Let's see. So that was, I think, a lot of the bathroom stuff. Let's see here. The elevator. So he got in the bathroom and the elevator, paid half of it, the VA agreed to pay for him, which, I'm not sure exactly how much those two were, but I think it was around $100,000 for the two, the remodel and the elevator. So the VA paid for half of that, and he paid for the other half. The elevator was just big enough for him in his power wheelchair and one other person. And he got to, I'll talk more about the Amazon Echo, but he used the Amazon Echo to be able to go into the elevator by himself, actually, and tell the Amazon Echo to open and close the door for him and to go to what level he wanted to go to. So that was all connected through the Amazon Alexa. And for a while, he could just use his head to actually push the buttons or his foot. But probably in the last 6 months, he wasn't able to do that. So he put an Amazon Dot on every door on all 3 levels in his home. So that he could talk to her and tell her what to do. It's pretty neat. Okay, so this is another thing that was just absolutely incredible. He was really into technology, and he knew how to use it way better than myself. And I probably can't explain it that well, but I can show you with this video. So some of the key words here, the key brands is Insteon, HomeSeer, and the Amazon Echo. So these 3 different devices connected, the Insteon and the HomeSeer connected to the Amazon Echo so that he could control a lot of things in his home. His lights, the temperature in the house. He could open and close doors, like I was saying with the elevator. Let's see, what else could he do? He could turn on that fan that you might be able to see in the picture there. So I've got a video here to show you how that worked. Alexa, turn off bedroom hall. Sorry, I didn't find it. Alexa, turn on master bedroom. Sorry, I didn't find master bedroom. Alexa, set bedroom thermostat to 64 degrees. Alexa, turn on garage door. Alexa, turn on garage 1. Okay, so it's pretty neat. I mean, I think it's pretty neat that we have that technology at our fingertips today. So obviously all the lights, all the fans in the house, all the lights, and some of the doors he could open on his own. And another thing that the Amazon Alexa was able to do was it was an intercom system. Actually, the Amazon Echo Alexa was not able to do this for quite some time, but probably about 8 months ago, I think, they came out with a new technology where you could call people outbound calls. If your phone was connected to the Amazon Alexa app, you could make outbound calls with Amazon Alexa onto people's phones, and then you can also call throughout the house. So towards the end of his life, he used this Alexa a lot to call my husband and myself, because we lived in the basement. And so he would just call us and say what he needed, and we'd come upstairs. And that was integral for him, just as far as his anxiety level is concerned, just so he could go to the bathroom and do the things that he needed to do if he was uncomfortable in any way, if he needed his nose blown or anything like that. He was able to call us or call anyone in his iPhone contacts if we happened to not be home. So that's a pretty neat feature on the Amazon Echo as well. And of course, this is all technology. So if I go back here, the Insteon and Home Steer are two different brands that do a similar thing. They connect to the Amazon Echo to turn off and on the lights and the temperature and all that kind of stuff. So he had both of those in case one of them wasn't working, which happens sometimes. So he had kind of a backup with the Home Steer and mostly used the Insteon as his primary resource for doing that kind of stuff. So anyways, that's some of the higher tech stuff. And these are the actual installation of the lights that turn on and off, and he had them all labeled so that he and other people knew the names for all the different rooms. Let's see, what else we got here? So he had lots of other little things that he did to adapt to his environment. It's not as much home modifications, but potentially suggestions that we as occupational therapists could give our customers with our clients with ALS. He had a neck pillow, which he used a neck pillow for his neck in the chair that he sat in, but he also used a neck pillow for his bottom because his tailbone got so sore, and it was he was so skinny that he was in a lot of pain with all the pressure on his tailbone. So to relieve the pressure, he put a neck pillow down backwards so that he wasn't sitting on his tailbone all the time. He also had this robotic arm that he got from the VA, paid for by the VA, Jayco robotic arm, which, he didn't use a whole lot. He used a little bit, but because it was on his power wheelchair and he didn't sit in his power wheelchair at home, he sat in a different chair. He didn't use it as much as he maybe could have utilized it. But basically, it's just a robotic arm. Since his arm didn't work, he was able, he could pick up things, pick up snacks, so he could eat things. He could pick up drinks. He could pick up tissue to blow his nose or wipe his nose. He could scratch himself with it, with the fingers. So yeah, it was a pretty cool device. I think it was like a $50,000 piece of equipment, but the VA once again paid for that piece of equipment. So VA was a huge resource for him as far as funding was concerned for these types of things. He also got these, I think they were called finger condoms, so that I guess the material on the actual robotic arm wasn't awesome for picking up certain types of food. So he put those guys on there to help grab things. and his granddaughters decorated the side there with stickers, as you can see. Okay, so let's see. This is Tim's chair. This is where he sat most of the time in front of his two computers. But the thing I want to point out is the wooden base down below, which is just a simple home modification for him. But he was, let's see, probably about late August, he was having a hard time standing up from his chair because it was too low. So his son made this probably about 5-foot wooden base so that it was easier for him to stand up. And it really did allow him to continue to stand up on his own and go get into his wheelchair, into the bathroom, and go to the bathroom on his own, probably for another couple months at least, so that he didn't have to call people to help him do that. So that was nice for his independence and for his caregiver's time as well, so that they didn't have to come up. Well, we didn't have to come up all the time when he had to go to the bathroom. Some of the higher tech stuff he has, all related to these computers, shown in the picture below. So he had Bluetooth headphones that he had in his ears all the time that he used. And he also had this mouse, that a really big mouse. I think it can be used for your hands or your feet. He used it for his feet, obviously, to do everything he wanted to do on his computer. And he had a couple different functions or devices. You can see the one on the left, which is another clicker system that he used with his iPad, actually, and it changed the channel for him because he had his TV connected to his computer. And his iPad connected to his computer somehow. So he had everything figured out. So he could do all the things he wanted to do on those devices. But those clicker systems are what he used with his feet. Let's see here. He also had an iPhone. He finally gave in and got an iPhone. Never had a smartphone before, but he got an iPhone, and just those devices that people use to connect them to their arms when they go running, the armband. He used one of those so he could have that on near him wherever he was, so he could call people if he needed something. That was another backup to the Amazon Alexa device, just in case the Wi-Fi wasn't working, which happens every once in a while. So he always had a backup plan. Let's see here. He also used this earpiece, which allowed him to make phone calls, outbound phone calls on his iPhone, and then he was able to also receive calls with his phone voice activated, so he didn't have to click on anything. So that was really helpful for him as well when people would call or when he needed to call people. Some of the lower tech stuff he had really cool straws, so that, I'm not sure if you saw in the picture of his chair, his son made these 3 cups put on the side of his chair here, so he could put his drinks in there, his coffee and milk and soda and all that kind of stuff. And the straw, he had some really, really, really long straws so that he didn't have to move too much to get them to his mouth. He used these elbow pads pictured in the middle just to protect his elbows. He used the wedge when he was sleeping to keep him a little bit more upright for his breathing, I think for his own comfort as well. And then I talked a little bit about the device, the finger that he used to be able to pull down his pants. so he could go to the bathroom. He used that for a while until he couldn't use it anymore, and then he came up with the idea to get bottomless pants, and then eventually just make bottomless pants for himself. So the picture here is a pair of his pants that we cut the back out of, so that he could just get up, go to the bathroom, and didn't have to worry about pulling down his pants or anything like that. So again, just another easy suggestion that somebody might not think of to make a caregiver's life easier and also increase independence for someone. So it's pretty neat. And then the last thing, I know he would want me to show you guys this. I'm sure this isn't applicable to most people in the U.S., but here in Washington, marijuana is legal. So Tim was a avid marijuana smoker, and he smoked up until probably about 3 days before he passed away. So this machine was his brainchild and one of his friends' brainchilds, and they made it so that he could smoke just by using his feet. And he had two different machines, actually. This one, which he rotated, and down below is the device that he just pushed in with his foot, and it was an electric lighter, and it just lit the joint, and he could smoke it through a tube. If you can see the tube in the back of the picture there, it went all the way up and right up close to his mouth, and he would just smoke it right through that tube. He'd just rotate through the joints that were in there. This was the first machine, which, it's a similar concept, but there's a candle right there that was lit, and he would just have to go over the candle with the joint, and it would light, and he would smoke it through these same tubes. So I think that just describes him perfectly as far as how much he was thinking about how he could continue to do the things that he loved to do and be as independent as possible with his physical limitations. So anyways, I'm sure there's a lot of other great home modifications and adaptive equipment that can be used for other people with ALS, but this has been our experience, and I feel like he had a vast array of different things, and I think that is pretty much all that I've got for you guys. Hopefully I'll be on the phone by now, so I can answer any questions if you have any, but I think that's all I have to talk about. So if anyone has any questions, hopefully I can answer some of them for you.
That was a great presentation. Are you here, Connie? I don't see your name, but the names don't come up for the phones.
Yeah, I am. I'm on the phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, that was wonderful. That was a really great presentation. What interesting devices he had, even down to the lower tech stuff and the pants. That I thought was really creative.
Yeah, he was pretty innovative.
Yeah, he was.
Long attendant for a long time, so.
So we do have one question that someone put in the box. Who set up the Alexa and the home automation stuff?
I actually don't know who set up the home automation, like actually installed it. I'm assuming it was the Insteon company that helped come out and do that. But the Amazon Alexa, Amazon came out and they have technicians that come out and set everything up for them.
Really?
Yeah. So they have home techs that come and troubleshoot. It was already set up by the time I had moved into the house, but it would come over and troubleshoot if there was any issues. So, but the Insteon can be set up by anyone. It was just a device, it's a box that you buy, and then all of those light switches that, you know, connect to the light and stuff. You can connect, you can do that on your own, you know, if you have someone to do that kind of thing. It's not super high tech. I don't know how to do it personally, but it was to me that it wasn't hard to do. So.
Yeah, I have a boy with Duchenne syndrome, and we have a request to do the whole house, the home automation for the whole house that will go with his Toby eye gaze. And I've talked to Toby several times, many people in there, and they keep saying, oh, yeah, that should be able to do that, but they don't know how to pair it. And they don't know what it can pair to. So that's what we were talking about now, is just doing something like an Amazon Echo, because it generates a voice.
Right, yeah.
And then Sheila says, or Nancy asks, could he speak until he passed?
Yeah, he could talk up until the day he died, so he didn't have any speech deficits. We thought he would, and he felt like his voice was going at times, but he never lost his voice. So
Nice. Sheila says this was interesting.
Which is obviously not true for a lot of people with ALS. So.
Sheila says, this was so interesting, Connie. Thank you so much for sharing your experiences with the wizard. And oops. And Judy says, what would you recommend as necessity versus want for someone with ALS?
Oh, that's a hard question. I think, gosh, I don't know. There's so many things. I mean, he had everything, but I think his number one priorities would have been anything that made him more comfortable, independent. So all of those things, but I think the bathroom remodel was a big one for him. And the bidets. I wouldn't say it's a necessity, but it kept him independent for so long. So I don't. That's a hard question. I'm not sure. Necessity. Yeah, that's tough. I don't know. Necessity would be just keeping someone alive, I guess. I don't know, but.
Melissa asks, how did you get connected with him?
So I'm at the University of Puget Sound, and he was a professor there, so he reached out to the OT PT program, and my colleague was living in the home, was moving out, and so he was looking for more care. He just reached out to people he knew.
Nancy asks, how did he transfer?
Up until about 6 months ago, he could get up out of the chair himself. With that, I mean, just using his legs, get up and walk to the bathroom, which is about 10 feet away, and sit on the toilet. But actually, he got a peg tube placed, and after he had that placed, he couldn't stand anymore. So someone had to be there to get him up and transfer to the chair, and then transfer him to the bathroom and get him up and sit on the toilet. So at that point, he was a lot less independent. But still independent considerably, because he could sit on the toilet on his own. Didn't have to have someone there or anything to stabilize himself. Is that what she meant? Was that what she was asking about transferring? I hope.
How did the coordination of all the home modifications work with the VA? Did home health therapists instigate all the modifications? Who was the main driver for that?
Yeah, the occupational therapist was one of his main resources for any type of equipment, like the justification for the JCO arm and PT for obviously for the wheelchair, the power wheelchair. For the actual remodel, it was the same thing, just a team of people, but the OTs and the PTs were the main instigators in getting that to go through. And they just they actually, he got the remodel done by a friend of his that they just took his suggestion and he hired his friend and the VA just paid his friend. So, I mean, people with ALS, I feel like they're expedited with the VA because it's more likely for some reason it's more likely for people in the military to get ALS. So I think that's one of the reasons that the VA is so supportive of people with ALS as far as equipment needs and stuff like that. They're really quick, faster than normal to get them there.
Judy asks, could you possibly, in general, prioritize what modifications were the most important to him?
Let's see here. Just modifications, not the adaptive equipment. The modifications, as far as home modifications, I would say specifically anything in the bathroom was really important to him. I don't think the grab bars were necessary at all because he lost function of his arms so fast. But that doesn't happen with a lot of people with ALS. That's not the first thing to go. So it could be useful for ALS for quite some time. But important for him to be able to use power, especially was he was very he was very being clean and to him. So he took a shower every single day. Was a huge. I mean, it made a huge difference for his quality of life. I would say the shower was really important, and just the little things like the 5 inches that the 5-inch base on his chair. It was his favorite chair. He didn't want to switch chairs, so just having that base so he could get up for a couple more months on his own was a big deal too. It was kind of an easy home modification. But let's see what else. Yeah, I'd say the bathroom probably the most important. Obviously, the elevator was important, but kind of a lot of money to spend on something like that when he could potentially change his environment to the first floor and live that way. He could have lived on the first floor, but just on the first floor, but he was able to get the elevator through the VA, so he took advantage of that. But I don't think that was the most important one. I'd say the home mod and the bathroom remodel, and especially the shower and the bidets, which I mentioned before. He didn't want to have his butt wiped, so that was important to him.
Sheila asks, who was a part of the design modification team? Did you have an interior designer to help with the bathroom redesign? The bathroom was gorgeous, functional and gorgeous.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know if he was involved in the, I mean, other than his friend who is a contractor and a general contractor, and does that kind of stuff. But I know that he wasn't, you know, an OT by any means. He just was doing what Tim wanted and all of the for all the different things in the bathroom. I think that Tim was really involved in every, so I think a lot of the conduct was playing a role in that.
You know what I wonder though, when I look at that sink, it looks like there's not a lot of space around it. So it looks like as a caregiver, it'd be hard to help him with his grooming activities because it just looks like it's a little cramped. Did you find that or no?
Yeah, he didn't. There wasn't a lot of space right there. He wasn't up to the sink actually when the caregivers would help him with like brushing his teeth and stuff like that. He sat back a little bit. When he couldn't stand anymore. He could stand for a while, and he could still do that pretty close. But when he was sitting in a wheelchair, which was for probably a year, at least a year, he wasn't sitting close to the sink. He just spat into a cup, so he wasn't using the sink at all. So yeah, you're right about that. It's a little cramped.
Why wasn't he using the sink when he was in a wheelchair though? I mean, it looks a little bit high, but why wasn't
he couldn't by the time he was in a wheelchair, he couldn't control his neck. His neck was like flopping forward, so it was either back or forward, but he couldn't rotate it, you know, in a controlled manner. It would just fall forward. So he was actually in the shower buddy. Should have said that. He wasn't in just a manual wheelchair. He was in the shower buddy, which stabilized his back, stabilized his neck a little bit. So I think that's why he couldn't use it on his own anyway. So he just had the caregiver there while he was sitting from the shower.
Nancy asked, did he use a joystick on the wheelchair?
Pardon? On the power wheelchair, yeah, he had a joystick at his feet.
Sheila says, talk about the stick on the sliding doors. Did he use his knees to open and close? Were they in the way when he opened the door all the way?
So he could open it and close it, and it closed right up to the edge of the whatever it would be. It closed all the way up to it. Exactly. The rod closed right up close to it. And so obviously if it was right up close to it, he couldn't get his leg in there to close the door if he wanted to. And if it was closed too far, he couldn't open it either. So it was always slightly open and not fully closed. Perfect adaptation to that, just so he could open it and close it however he wanted to. So, I mean, he could close it all the way, but then he couldn't open it again. So. Oh, I was just saying, I was listening to some, we'll see online some pictures of. That's probably a better option than that little rod they put in the door. Someone said that something popped. They had something pop out of those doors that they could get their fingers into and move, or something like that.
Yes. Were there several shower heads in the shower, Connie? And where are the controls?
Yeah. There's the overhead shower, there's the handheld shower, and then there was like the shower heads that came out of the wall. Controls are right in the center, so you turn it one way and it turns the overhead one on. You turn it the other, it turned one of the wall ones on, and then there was one below that, and you turn it one way and it turned the handheld one on, and then the other way turned the other wall one on. So just
that was my question, and I was talking recently to a home builder, and he was talking about they're starting to put the controls especially like for caregivers, which would make sense in this situation where the controls are just more right, even on the outside of the shower, or where, so the caregiver wouldn't get wet. You know, you could turn the water to adjust the temperature before you ever even got in the shower. And I just wondered, that's why I was curious, but you saying these controls, are they like right under the main shower head, like a traditional shower?
Yep, just like a traditional shower. So in order to not get wet, you either had to grab the shower head first, the handheld shower head first, or just do it really fast. So yeah, you pretty much get wet if you're turning those on.
So that's something to keep in mind too for people doing bathroom remodeling, to see if there's a way to put the controls away from the inside of the shower.
Good point. Well, we're gonna have to close the meeting down. It's getting kind of late. Connie, this was wonderful. What a great look into ALS and home modifications for someone with ALS. There were so many great ideas, and it's too bad you couldn't have been here sooner. We stopped the presentation a few times just to discuss what a cool house. Thank you so much for sharing this. This is really valuable information.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Sorry, go
I feel a lot more confident now in starting a business home modification with all the stuff I've been learning with Tim. So it's helpful for me and hopefully my future.
Yeah. If you live in
I'm glad I could share some insight.
If you live in a densely populated area, you should really advertise yourself as an ALS occupational therapist for home modifications. You've got such good stuff here. And then, can you see the chat box at all?
I can't. No, I'm on my phone.
Okay.
Sitting in the parking lot here.
Oh, well, there's several people that are saying thank you so much. We really appreciated this. This was wonderful, so very real and practical. It was very good to hear from you here. Thank you, Connie. Great presentation. Good luck. Thank you so much. This is a good idea. So, Sheila writes, you should submit this presentation to an AOTA conference. I mean, it was really, really good. Thank you so much, Connie, for volunteering to do this. And it makes me sad that Tim died a couple weeks ago. It would have been nice to have him on the call too. Carrie says, awesome.
Yeah, it would have been so nice.
Yeah. Carrie says, awesome pictures and strategies. You're now officially the resident ALS consultant for HMOTA. How's that? You're willing to.
Sounds good. I'll try my best to live up to that.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Have a great night, and thank you all for coming. Hopefully we'll see you next Monday. Take care.